This video is brought to you by WAP. Find your community today with the link in the description. So you want to get into sneaker botting. Joining a cook group is a critical first step to starting your sneaker botting journey. And that's because they have to teach you all of these. And if that's not enough, this information changes all the time. So your group has to make sure that you are updated, ready to go for every single release. So today we're going to be reviewing 4 different cook groups, all of which are on the WAP marketplace, which is today's sponsor of the video. Our contestants for today. Number 1, Strike Access. Owned by Tiana Porta, she is considered by many to be one of the best botters in the scene. For many releases, it's common for her to get hundreds of checkouts. Will her group be able to help newbies turn into pros? Stay tuned to find out. Number 2, Notify. If you watch my content, then surely you know about this one. I was a co-owner of the group for about 2 years, and by many it's considered to be one of the best. But today, we're going to be putting that to the test. Number 3, Tommy Boy TV Plus. Owned by Tommy Boy TV, who's basically a sneaker YouTuber. He talks about shoes, he does pickup. Alright, never mind about Tommy Boy. It's been 5 whole days and I'm still not accepted to the waitlist, so instead we are going to review Polar Chefs. I've heard a lot of good things about this group. It's one of the groups that some people in my live stream chat and comments recommend to other viewers on a pretty regular basis, so I'll take this opportunity now to see what this is all about. Number 4, Invicta. I don't know anything about this group, but I wanted to include a budget option. This group is only $20 a month. It has a 5-day free trial, and that's really all I have to go off of. Otherwise, this group looks quite promising. Now let's move on to how I will judge each group. First of all, I'm going to be on a burner Discord account, posing as someone who is brand new to botting. None of the groups that I'm reviewing know I'm even making this video. I'm going to try to be as unbiased as possible. This isn't going to be an exact science, but the criteria that I will be using to judge these groups are the following: beginner friendliness, support, accuracy of information, amount of information, group buys, features, and community. Each group will get a rating out of 10 for each of these categories. Ideally, as a beginner, I expect to be somewhat proficient at botting within 1 to 6 weeks with the assistance of the resources, staff, and owners of each group, and I feel like these are the most important factors in helping accomplish that. By the way, if you represent any of these groups in any way, shape, or form, and I end up giving some harsh criticisms, please don't take it the wrong way. It would be much more productive to instead view these points as areas for improvement. Without further ado, let's get into it. To get into any of these groups, step 1, click on the link in the description. Step 2, make an account. Step 3, select the group that you want to join. Step 4, sign up for the waitlist if your group has one. This should only take 1 to 3 days. And then step 5, you can go to My Hub on the top right hand side to check the status of your waitlist. Now, instead of reviewing one group at a time, I'm going to be reviewing each criteria at a time. That way you guys can see how these groups really differ from each other and where their strong points and where their weak points are. I feel like it's a lot easier to identify using this method. So without further ado, let's get into beginner friendliness. This is something that a lot of groups overlook. Essentially, if I am a new botter and I get into a cook group, I want for me to have a clear understanding of what my next steps would be. In the past, when I was first getting started, I joined a few different cook groups, and many of these cook groups would just have a bunch of information there, and I have no idea where to even begin. I feel like an essential part of any cook group is to help their members understand all of that information and how to utilize it as best as possible. Alright, let's kick it off with Invicta. Upon joining their Discord, I got a message from Aiden. Now, it's a nice welcoming message, but it really just seems like this is kind of just a directory. Turning on notifications, even for some seasoned Discord users, isn't exactly straightforward. When we're talking about servers with tons and tons of channels, it's not as simple as just, muting every single channel that you decide not to use. By default, channels are unmuted. So you actually have to go into the notification settings over here and then configure these, go down to the notification overrides and do some more settings over there. It's really up to the group to be able to teach you how to do that. Especially if you've never used Discord before, notifications are crazy important. So it's not something that anyone should overlook, especially group owners. However, admittedly, this gives me a lot of peace of mind of them just, being welcoming. Hey, DM me with any questions. That actually goes a long way. If I wanted to maybe ask him, how do I turn on notifications? Then hopefully he would have like an answer for me, but we are going to save that for the support section. But yeah, overall, this is kind of just like a directory. Check out our site/product monitors, such as PS5 monitor. Like, someone might be going, what even is a monitor? What does that even do? Why do I even need that? Now, this actually would be quite excusable if the information that they have in the release channels give clear instructions on what to do, how to cop, etc. But the first one that I clicked on as far as like release channel, this isn't really considered a release channel, more like a feature, low-key flips. So it gives kind of like an estimated risk, estimated retail price, estimated resale price, and maybe some other notes and considerations. However, it doesn't really go into detail as to how to actually cop the item, which is quite a problem. Now let's go into some of the release channels. Let's see if they have any information there. It looks like the release channel does have a little bit of information, but still not anywhere detailed enough to be able to really understand right away how to be able to cop this item. So unfortunately for Invicta, I will probably have to give it a 6 out of 10 as far as beginner friendliness rating, but hopefully they can make it up in the other categories. Next, we got Polar Chefs. Now, the interesting thing about Polar Chefs is the moment I paid for the group, I was redirected to this YouTube video called Polar Chef Server Walkthrough. Now, this might be a new thing. It says there's 3 views only 1 day ago. I promise this was not planned at all, but this is exactly the type of thing that I'm looking for when it comes to beginner friendliness. So I'm going to go through this video and see the information that they offer here.
Welcome to Polar Chefs. In this video today, we're going to spend some time going through the server together, and we're going to be highlighting some of the unique features that the server has to offer. This video will help reduce or prevent any feelings of being overwhelmed with the amount of channels and services that the server does offer to you.
So obviously I'm not trying to leak their entire tutorial, but I am honestly so impressed. Basically explains everything that you need to know to be able to get started with botting, to get started with the server in general, to get started with other flips, and to get started with just learning how to cover your membership to begin with, and it is absolutely phenomenal. The way Polar Chefs has it set up is that they make it almost impossible for you to not understand. And that should be the end goal for most cook groups, in my opinion. As long as you're reading the material, you're watching the video guides, it should be very intuitive. I give it a solid 10 out of 10 for beginner friendliness. On to Notify. So the first channel is the Get Started channel. Welcome to Notify. We are happy to have you joining our community, and the team can't wait to meet you and ensure your success in our spaces. First, we strongly recommend watching the video below, as it will give you an introduction to the basics of your membership. So scroll down. The video is not super obvious. I guess you gotta click on this welcome video and it will take you to a YouTube video. I suppose this video is similar to the Polar Chefs video. Full disclosure, I made this video back when I was working with Notify, and my goal with the video is not too different from what I spoke about earlier, is to give members, despite your skill level, a clear path on what to do next. Now, my only criticism with this is that the video is not super obvious, so I can see how members would just easily skip this and just go straight into, trying to learn everything without really any direction. But however, the support that Notify does offer makes it really easy for you to get back on track with guidance. As you can see, also included on the first page, they talk about Notify's support channels, such as one-on-one sessions. The ticket channel is just a couple of channels down. But yeah, overall pretty good. Just because the video isn't super obvious, I would give this a 9.7 out of 10. Okay, up next we got Strike Access. Upon joining Strike Access, you get a message from WelcomeBot. Welcome to Strike Access. To get started, head on over to us-get roles to claim your roles. They have to fix this. This get roles isn't linked, so you can't actually click on it. You would have to manually go to the channel and then click on it, but not a big deal. If you have any questions, create a ticket, let's cook. All right, pretty self-explanatory. They definitely have to fix this. Let's just ignore that for now, okay? And let's just pretend that it is linked, and then so we'll go here, and then we should end up in get roles. or rather US-get roles, if I could find it. So the channel is called US-get roles. If I do like this, US-get roles, it's just not showing up. So this definitely has to get updated 100%. Okay, so I found out what went wrong. When I got accepted via their waitlist application, I didn't look in the server for 3 whole days because I wanted to make sure I was in all of the servers before I started doing my reviews. Because of that, my onboarding ticket was manually closed out by an admin and marked me as an EU member because I just so happened to apply to their waitlist at the same time that a lot of other European members applied as well. And that's why I'm having so much trouble here. So I decided to make a new WAP account so I can give Strike Access a fair chance at this category. Their onboarding process is very simple and self-explanatory, and once that's finished, you will have access to their Getting Started text guide. They even have a section dedicated specifically for beginners, so Strike Access gets extra points for that. The main thing they're missing is a video guide, and I feel like video guides are super important. Most people are visual learners, and it's a lot easier to follow what someone is doing through a video guide rather than looking at a text guide. Or if you really don't feel like making a video, then perhaps making a text guide with pictures is something to consider. I give it a solid 8 out of 10. Support is absolutely critical. This is more or less how you're gonna get maybe 30 to 45% of your information, because when you're starting out botting, you're going to have questions, and your group staff members have to answer them quickly and accurately, and they actually, have to fill in the missing details. Maybe they even have to give you answers to questions that you may not have even thought about. So we're going to be creating a ticket from each of these groups. We're going to be evaluating how fast they respond, and we're going to be evaluating the quality of the responses. So here we go. Let's do this. Create a ticket. This is on Invicta. General support. Okay, so that's how it works. Support ticket. Same thing here. Create a ticket. And there we have it. Okay, so the first question is going to be, hello, I'm you. What's a good proxy for Shopify? Okay, looks like Lofty is typing first out of all of these groups from Invicta. We'll see if he gets to reply first. I'm curious to know which has the fastest response time. There we go. Polar Chefs replied in 2 minutes. Obscure gave me a reply after 3 minutes. That's still very good. For Notify, technically we got the fastest reply here because it automatically linked to a proxies text guide. Everything that you have to know about proxies. Briefly looking through this guide, this did answer my question, and it also gave me a video guide for you visual learners out there. But I'm going to bump the message and say, which company do you guys personally use? Because this one is a little bit more personal. I kind of just want to see how fast they reply. It's been about 6 minutes since I've opened the ticket. No responses yet. And same goes with Strike Access. So first place goes to Polar Chef, second place goes to Invicta as far as response times are concerned. And the quality of their responses are actually quite good. However, none of them mentioned that it's okay to run Shopify without proxies, which I feel like is a pretty important point, especially maybe for a budget conscious beginner, because not running proxies at all on Shopify also works well. So I'm surprised that neither of these staff members gave that suggestion, but that's okay. Okay, on to the next question. We're basically going to see their average response time. That's what I want to kind of understand. Depends on how many tasks you're planning to run, regardless if you're using Valor or not. Okay, I'm pretty satisfied with this answer. Pretty good. And then he linked me to a full Shopify sites guide. Okay, this is excellent, dude. This is excellent. Honestly, Polar Chefs is winning right now. Now we are waiting for the other 3 groups, which seem super slow now, especially in comparison to Polar Chefs. Sheesh. Now, while we wait for them, let's go over some of their other support offerings. For example, do they offer one-on-one training? Do they do seminars, etc.? Starting off with Invicta, they do offer ticket support and they offer one-on-one, but only kind of. The impression that I'm getting from this message is that it's only being done by the owner, which is not scalable since he is only one person. But I will acknowledge it. With a $20 price point, I don't expect him to be able to afford an army of one-on-one advisors, but this is the next best alternative. Aiden, as the owner himself, putting in the work to try and make sure that my needs as a beginner are taken care of. Polar Chefs, they offer ticket support, one-on-one voice sessions. They also have a question channel. From what I can see, this question channel has about a 5 to 15 minute response time, and they also host seminars. Seminars are basically online classes that focus on specific topics. Topics can range anywhere from Gmail management to Nike botting, or perhaps even introductions to other categories that make money outside of sneakers. So they basically offer everything. On to Notify. Ultimately, they have the same offerings as Polar Chefs, except there is a slight difference in the question channel response times. Strike Access, they have tickets, one-on-one voice sessions, and they also have question channels as well. Their question channel is actually quite good, offering, from what I see, to be anywhere between a 3 to 5 minute response time for most people. And here is a spreadsheet to better visualize all of the support offerings that these servers have. Okay, about 2 hours later, here are the results. By the way, take this with a slight grain of salt. This sample size is tiny. I am one person and this is only tested using a handful of questions. So I guess you can see this as kind of just like a first impressions for the support team. So with Invicta, they had a response time of around 5 minutes, but weirdly after the third question, 2 hours later, they still haven't replied to my most recent question. Simple question, do you guys offer a one-on-one? Obviously, this question is important for when I listed out their support methods. I don't think that should be a question that's hard to answer. Either you do or you don't. It's not that difficult. On to Polar Chefs. Again, incredibly impressive. Their response times is like 1 to 2 minutes. That's as fast as possible, basically. The person who was helping me in my ticket was super nice, very patient and understanding. However, one thing I do have to say is essentially if a support staff doesn't know the answer to a question, what in my opinion they're supposed to do is find someone that can help them answer my question or try and dig around, try to figure it out themselves and hopefully get an acceptable answer. But either way, saying I don't know the answer to that question is much better than not giving a response at all. On to Notify, I got a 15 to 20 minute response time, and then after my third question, 2 hours later, they still haven't replied to my most recent question. Basically the same exact thing as Invicta. I find this extremely surprising because when it comes to Notify, support is supposed to be like one of their strong points. I'm not really sure what's going on here. If I really had to take a guess, it's because January is pretty much dead as far as sneaker releases for the most part. So maybe the staff don't feel like it's important for them to answer the questions right away because there's no upcoming releases. But during dead periods where there aren't any releases back to back to back, I feel like that's the most important time to learn how to bot because during those busy periods, that's when you execute. You don't want to learn like 2 days before the drop or 1 day before the drop. You want to try to learn everything as fast as possible, basically. But either way, they still haven't replied to me for 2 hours. That's just pretty unacceptable. Okay, on to Strike Access. This one is a little bit different. So it took them 40 minutes to get an initial response. They did fix my role, so now I have the US role. And then a little bit later, around 2 hours from the time I made my initial ticket, JB got a hold of my ticket, I guess, and he started taking care of me. And honestly, I am quite impressed with him. His responses were very good. He answered every question that I had with a response time of around between 2 to 4 minutes each, which is fantastic. My main complaint here is just how long it took to get to my ticket to begin with. Again, the sample size is super small. My experience might not be the same experience for everybody else in the group, but those for the results. Okay, today is a new day. In case you were wondering, Invicta and Notify did end up getting back to me eventually, but with those response times, still not exactly something that I'm too happy about. But with that out of the way, let's get into the overall scores that each group gets under the support category. Here we are also going to consider the amount of support options that each group offers. So when it comes to Invicta, somewhat slow response times, and if the only way to get help is through tickets, then I wouldn't really score them very highly. And being that the one-on-one training isn't exactly scalable, being that I assume it's only being done by one person, it's a little bit scuffed in my opinion. I know Aiden is doing the best he can do with the resources that he has, but at the end of the day, in my opinion, their score is a 6 out of 10. Polar Chefs, their ticket support response times, really freaking amazing. Honestly, blew me away. Now, unfortunately, I can't get into the quality of their one-on-one training and the quality of their seminars, but generally focused talking points and personal training like that, it's honestly pretty hard to mess up. So their overall score is 9.5 out of 10. Notify, they basically offer all of the same support channels as Polar Chefs. However, their response times are just really bad. At least what I experienced so far on this burner Discord account. But I will give them an 8 out of 10. And the main reason why I give them an 8 out of 10 is because one-on-one training and seminars aren't exactly methods of support where someone can just like not respond to you for a long period of time. Strike access. Unfortunately, no seminars, no Q&A sessions. As of right now anyway, it's something that I explicitly asked in the support ticket. My biggest complaint is just how long it took to get an initial response. But once someone did pay attention to my ticket, I got all of the help that I need, and the guy was super nice. So in my opinion, this deserves an 8 out of 10. Okay, so the next two categories, accuracy of information and amount of information. Let's get into it. For these two categories, we will be evaluating information from three main sections. The release channels, which are channels where ideally you would have all the information that you need to know about a particular sneaker release, guides, amount of guides, accuracy of them, and the level of detail, and live drop information. This is time-sensitive information provided during a release. One example is during a release, there's many times where you need to adapt on the fly. The good thing about groups is that you don't have to do this alone. You have the assistance of the collective efforts of your group staff members to be able to feed you necessary information in real time. For instance, if an unexpected change occurs in a website's release procedure, would staff members be able to help tweak your setup accordingly in a time-sensitive manner? Okay, starting off with Invicta. Their release channels feature estimated retail price, site lists, keywords, and some information about each website's anti-bot procedures. If you're a seasoned sneaker botter, then normally this information would be more than good enough for you to work with. However, a beginner looking at this really wouldn't know how to utilize this information. Hopefully, we can turn to Invicta's guide so we can better learn how to optimize our bot setups for these websites. So let's have a look at their bot setup foot sites guide. Well, the only information that we have here is foot sites are self-explanatory. Be prepared to run for a long time. And then we have a picture of an example of a foot site setup. Now this, I have a huge problem with, because foot sites aren't self-explanatory. Footsites utilizes Qt for most hype releases, which means botters have to explore third-party captcha solvers for their tasks to even run properly, which isn't mentioned at all in these guides. There's no mention of what proxies to use, no mention of proxy to task ratio, no mention of what payment methods to use, no mention of jigging strategies, no mention of even when to start tasks. To keep it real, this guide is severely lacking. Now let's look at their Shopify guide. Same thing. This guide doesn't talk about queue. This guide doesn't talk about when to use fast mode, when to use preload, when not to use preload, doesn't talk about start times, doesn't talk about the solvers that you need open. All of these are critical parts for running Shopify, and none of them are addressed. Looking at some of their other guides, they were pretty accurate for the most part, but there's just too much missing for me to give a good score. However, they do have a very in-depth guide for Hibbit, which is really good manual website, and they do have a decent Nike stash guide. Live drop information. How much do they help you during the actual releases? It looks like it's quite inconsistent. For instance, if I search start tasks where they post live drop information, it is months apart between when this very important thing is advised. I have to admit, it isn't completely abysmal though. I was going through the channel during some more active periods and I can tell that the team is trying, but there is a lot of room for improvement. So amount and accuracy of information, I have to give both a 5 out of 10. Moving on to Polar Chefs. Their release channels are very similar to Invicta. However, beginners would have a much easier time here since at the bottom of every release channel, there is a link to all of the relevant guides. My only criticism here is, what if a beginner doesn't even know what Shopify is? They wouldn't really think to know to click on a Shopify guide if they're not familiar with the term. So clicking on their guides, their Shopify guides cover pretty much everything. They even have video guides to walk you through 3 bots that you can use to reference. The only key detail that they're missing is when to actually start tasks, so hopefully they cover that when they get to their live drop information. Looking at their foot size guide, they covered everything perfectly. Looking at all of their other guides, they're all very well done and up to date. And not only are they giving excellent information, but they are also giving other considerations and small nuances that might catch other botters off guard, such as proxy data burn rate. And a lot of these guides are also accompanied by a video, live drop information. Looking at the channel where they post this information, they are extremely consistent. Constant reminders, constant real-time updates to help their members adapt on the fly. Truly magnificent stuff. Amount of information, 10 out of 10. Accuracy of information, 9.5 out of 10. It's not that there's something about the information that's inaccurate, it's just that upon my time looking at the different guides, I wasn't able to easily find out any information about starting times for Shopify, which someone can argue is one of the most important platforms right now when it comes to botting. On to Notify. Release channel. The way they have the release channel set up is probably my personal favorite. It includes resale estimates, which sizes are expected to be the most profitable, a link to the raffle pages, site lists, which include the platform of each website, and underneath each website are the bots that support that website, and underneath that is a guide on how to effectively cop from that website. So now, clicking on the guide for Shopify, this is so incredibly detailed. Not only do they cover all of the information necessary, but they also tell you which specific Shopify bot works best for each Shopify website. Moving on to their foot size guide, it's also really good. Not only do they cover everything, but they also have an entire separate guide on how to effectively handle Qt, and it explains all of the pros and cons of each third-party solver solution. As for the amount of guides, if you can think about it, they got it. If you look at this list, these are all the guide categories, and each of these categories contain about 5 to 15 guides which go into detail for each subtopic. You can make an entire college curriculum out of this thing. For the live drop information, it almost seems as if these guys are holding your hand. They give reminders, they tell you what to do, they tell you when to start tasks for each individual website, and they even tell you to scroll down to see grade school sizes. This might be taking it a little bit too far. So for Notify, amount and accuracy of information, both 10 out of 10. Now to cover strike access. Let's start off with their release channels. In their release channels, they have estimated retail prices, site lists, keywords, and the most profitable sizes. Also, the relevant monitors where the shoes might appear. Unfortunately though, it looks like the site lists are missing some critical information, such as the anti-bot measures that each website uses. The reason why this is critical is because this will dictate how you're going to set up for each website. Furthermore, there's no easy navigation to their guides directly from their release channels, so we have to manually browse the server to find it ourselves. This seems like a little bit of a nitpick, but ease of navigation to help users find relevant information can make a big difference in the user experience. So I try to find their Shopify guide. I click on the first one, and it seems to be a very detailed guide on how bot protection works on Shopify, and potentially how to get around them. Although this is very good, I did spot a crucial mistake. Their suggestion to get around Shopify anti-bot is to start 5 to 10 minutes before with higher delays and then drop the delays down to 30 seconds before the release. To be frank, this is just too general and outdated information. You can't simply start just 5 to 10 minutes before the scheduled release anymore. This sentence does not explain the relationship between the Shopify queue and when you should start your tasks, which is extremely important. Now, they have some fantastic educational materials such as how to prevent Shopify cancels, how to run for restocks, etc. But I still haven't found a page that just shows you how to run for each Shopify website. As a side note, I feel like the way they have this organized could use some huge improvements. Let me walk you through it. Towards the top, they have a guides channel. Inside the guides channel, they link you to a guide finder. The guide finder is part of the guides channel category, but the finder channel is kind of just a directory which compiles all of the guides within the channel category, kind of, because we go to the next channel, which is titled Strike Access Guides, where you can browse through even more guides that are not included in the guide finder. But it doesn't stop there. We move up to the botting category where there are guides for each platform. Click on the respective channel and then there are guides for each bot. I click on Shopify Wrath and there's nothing there. I kind of gave up, so I just made a ticket, with T replying that they didn't actually have a general Shopify guide. However, as another side note, momentarily after that I got a friendly message from a new staff member saying they can assist me with Shopify, which is very nice of him. Anyways, back to navigating the guide section. Now, I checked some of the other channels, and yes, they do have detailed information there covering each bot, but not all of them had information in it. Now, if we go to bot setups, we also have bot example setups, which is very good. This is exactly what I was looking for. I finally found it. But what's this? We have another channel called Bot Release Guides. These are actually the release channels that come directly from each separate bot's dedicated Discord servers. Did I lose you guys at any point in time? I lost myself just reading the script. Tiana, you're probably going to watch this. I consider you my friend. This is coming from a place of love. I use Discord every day of my life, and I had a hard time navigating this. I feel like members would also be able to benefit from a revamp of the way all of this information is sorted. Anyways, onto the live drop information. It's actually extremely good. Strike Access gets a perfect score here. But as for their overall scores with everything that I mentioned, amount of information, 8 out of 10, accuracy of information, 9 out of 10. One thing I didn't talk about is exclusivity of information. Which group has the secret information that no other group has? Unfortunately, I won't be able to evaluate this one because I feel like this will vary from release to release, and as a result, this can really only be judged over a long period of time. The more expensive groups do have the resources to hire insiders to provide this kind of information. But to tell you the truth, it's not that big of a game changer. It's not required for you to become successful at botting. Instead, what this will do is maybe for a handful of drops throughout the year, you'll get a slight advantage. Not really a big deal. And that's why I'm gonna leave this category out for now. Okay, onto group buys. Group buys are one of the best ways to get bots or proxies that you otherwise wouldn't be able to regularly. For instance, nowadays many bots have a waitlist. Now, who knows how long before you're able to get accepted. But through a group buy, you have an opportunity to purchase the bots right away, oftentimes at a discounted rate. Some bots and other companies such as proxy companies and account companies don't even sell publicly. Sometimes the only way they make sales are through group buys. Having frequent and high quality group buys will ensure that the group's members will have several opportunities to get their hands on the best bots, the best proxies, etc. at the best possible prices. My method for evaluating this will be pretty simple. I'm going to go from October of 2022 through December of 2022 and then tally up how many group buys each group had and separate each group by category, and I will also factor into the number of different companies that these groups had a group buy with. Okay, starting off with Invicta, no AIO bot group buys, no raffle bot group buys. Nike bot group buys, they had only 2 over the course of 3 months. However, the Nike bot group buy that they were able to secure is actually quite good. Proxy group buys, they had 9, but the diversity of companies were just really lacking. They only had 2 companies provide those 9 group buys, and they only had 2 in the other category. Normally I would have given them a 3 out of 10, but because they were able to secure a really good Nike bot group buy, I will give them a 4 out of 10. Now for Polar Chefs, they had a lot of group buys. I mean, a lot. Now I'm gonna show Notify as well because their numbers are very similar. As you can see, however, for certain categories, Polar Chefs just has way more group buys than Notify, but that's because Notify is actually quite selective with who they decide to group buy with. Although Polar Chefs wins out as far as sheer quantity and number of group buys, they are missing some very important companies that unfortunately I don't think are partnered with them as of yet. However, Notify does include those companies. The reason why I'm not saying the name of the companies is because sometimes they just don't want to advertise it. So you're just gonna have to take my word for it. Since Notify is quite selective with who they choose to have group buys with, I have to admit, I think I kind of like the way Polar Chefs does it a little bit better, being that it at least gives members options. So because of that, Polar Chef gets 9 out of 10. They're missing a point because of the important names I feel like they're missing in their group buy list. And then Notify, also 9 out of 10. They're missing a point because I feel like they're a little bit too selective with who can have group buys with them. And as you can see for some of these numbers, Polar Chef just absolutely blows Notify out of the water. Now for strike access, these numbers aren't bad, but they're not amazing. I would put them like around above average. So I'll give them a solid 7 out of 10. Okay, so that about covers it for group buys. Onto the features. For features, I'm gonna list every single feature of each group, and you can use a legend for reference on what each color and letter means. So I'll go through each category one by one. For the sneakers category, I feel like all the groups do a pretty good job. For Notify, however, they don't bother too much with brick general release sneakers. Typically, these are sneakers that have almost no chance of selling for a profit and are also extremely easy to get. But I feel like it's nice to have, and perhaps it's something that they can add in the future. For bulk buyers, all of them except for Notify has one sneaker bulk buyer. So that's why I have a K for all of them. Notify does have access to a number of sneaker store owners, so you have many more options. Learning resources and support. We went through that in detail in the previous sections of the video, so if you just skip to the end, then you can go back and watch the support section and accuracy and amount of information. ACO slots. If you're not familiar with the term, this is a service where staff and owners of the group take their members' payment information and run it on their own bots. Typically, this is a free service for all the members in the group. Invicta hasn't ran slots since October. Notify and Polar Chefs have respectable numbers, but this is where strike access shines. And from my understanding, this is also their main selling point. Looking at their ACO recap channels, their submissions to success ratio is mental. It wouldn't surprise me if some members are able to pay back their memberships with slots alone, which is an extremely enticing value proposition. When it comes to other flips, I feel like every group here is doing a really good job relative to their price point, especially Polar Chefs. Discounts and freebies. This is one of my favorite perks of being in a cook group. Free food, free random stuff, discounted items, and here you can see what each group offers. Over my years of being in groups, I've definitely had at least $1,000 in savings using these services, so this can really come in handy. Here are some of the other features and money-making opportunities that each group provides. But if none of these interest you in the slightest, then it's not a huge deal. Onto miscellaneous support. Support channels that have almost nothing to do with sneakers, but can be complementary and in general, quite nice to have. Polar Chefs have coding and taxes chat channels, but from what I can gather, they don't really have dedicated staff members to help with these things. But they do for computer and credit assistance. Notify, on the other hand, has dedicated staff members for most of these categories. They have a CPA in charge of the tax channel. They have a super genius in charge of their homework channel that can help you with any subject, essay revisions, you name it. Some techies in charge of computer help, a verified internal medicine doctor in charge of the medical chat. Their credit advice channel is led by an account manager who works at a multi-billion-dollar finance corporation. And for the career college advice channel, I don't feel like naming out all of his qualifications because it's too many, so here's a screenshot. The idea that Notify is able to provide all of these is kind of crazy to me. Monitors. As for the monitors, they're almost all basically the same. With the rise of AI, I feel like monitors aren't really as important as they used to be, but they're just nice to have. I think the only one that matters a lot here is Hibit. Invicta has one, but it doesn't really look like it works judging from the screenshot. Tools. Out of all of these, the only one that has a true dedicated mobile app is Notify. These groups do have them, but the way Notify's mobile app works is a lot more fleshed out because we know how finicky Discord notifications can be on the mobile app, so having a standalone app that provides you real-time information taken directly from the Discord server, even though it's separate from Discord, is quite nice. For Chegg, Course Hero, etc., this is mainly useful for students who need access to these services. Here are my ratings just purely from features for each group. Invicta, 5 out of 10, just average. Not really much else to say. Polar Chefs, 9.8 out of 10. The only reason why they didn't get a 10 out of 10 is because they don't offer sneaker brick clips information, which I feel like is quite important. And I also find it quite surprising considering that they cover basically everything else. But either way, this list has far exceeded exceeded my expectations. Notify, 10 out of 10. They have the widest range of features, including things I wouldn't even expect from a sneaker cook group. Strike Access, 8.7 out of 10. Although the number of offerings they have is slightly less than Notify and Polar Chefs, their ACO is probably one of the best out of any group, if not the best. And they also cover all of the other important subjects such as hat flips, collectible, low-key flips, etc. Now onto community. As far as community, one thing that I didn't really consider before getting into this video is that community is very subjective. But one thing that I will say that is absolutely unacceptable in any cook group community is when a community belittles or just makes fun of newcomers or makes fun of people who are new to botting. That is absolutely unacceptable. People join cook groups to be able to learn how to do this stuff, and if members are scared to ask questions because they're going to be made fun of, then that's just not a good group to be in, honestly. So this is what I'm going to do. In the general chat, I'm going to ask, hello, what time do we start tasks for Jordan 1 Lost and Found? This sneaker dropped last month, and I'm asking this on a Sunday night at 9:25 p.m. EST. I'm trying to pretend that I'm absolutely lost. I have no idea what I'm doing. So we're gonna see how each group reacts to that message. I wanna make it painfully obvious that I'm brand new. I'm not going to give a rating, I'm only going to give a pass or a fail. That's all. Starting off with Invicta. What time do we start tasks for Jordan 1 Lost and Found? And I get completely ignored. Fail. On to Polar Chefs. Hello, what time do we start tasks for Jordan 1 Lost and Found? When we post info and ping it, there's no confirmed date or time for the release yet. First of all, what a crazy response time. He responded within the same minute. I'm almost sure this guy is the owner and he has like 50 monitors and each of them is monitoring every single chat channel. Like how do you possibly reply so quick? The idea that he replied so quick, it doesn't even really let me evaluate the community because I was hoping some random members would chime in on this, but he didn't even allow that to happen. He just boom, answered the question. On to Notify. This one is probably the most entertaining. Hello, what time do I start tasks for Jordan 1 Lost and Found? Wait, what? What do you mean? What time do we start tasks? What does he know that we don't? For the release? For Nike? I'm not really sure. I'm new. Oh. No Lost and Found release yet. I think he means Jordan 1 True Blue. There's no confirmed date. Oh, okay. Thanks. Do you mean True Blues? Never mind. I thought this man had some inside information we don't know about. Who's we? Honestly, they passed with flying colors because it seemed as if like 3 people tried to help me all at once and there was no sign of malice or making fun of me or anything like that. So yeah, Notify, pass with flying colors. Strike Access. Hello, what time do I start tasks for Jordan 1 Lost and Found? For the 17 to 19 restock? I'm not really sure, I just wanted some Jordan 1 Lost and Founds. 30 minutes later. At least you're trying. I don't know what I'm doing, I'm new. Do you happen to know what time to start tasks for Jordan 1 Lost and Found? I'm Team Mangle. It's a shock drop, hence it won't be planned, like right when it drops. You start tasks like everyone else. When it's a shock drop, there's no info. Rumors swirling, it's between 17th and 19th. Could be then, could be never. Okay, they also passed with flying colors. However, this entire exchange was literally an entire hour. That is a very long time to get, some answers. But either way, posing as a beginner, it's very welcoming. I didn't feel like I was ridiculed or anything like that, and that's literally the only thing that I'm measuring here. With that out of the way, let's get into my overall rating for each group. By the way, the community column, I'm just gonna completely ignore that. And I also asked several members from each group what they personally rate their cook group. It's gonna appear somewhere on the screen while I'm talking, because I do believe gathering the opinions from other members can also be insightful. Starting off with Invicta, their average rating is 5.17. In my opinion, joining this group is better than not having a group at all if you're starting off botting, as they do have site lists, early links, some support, although I wasn't impressed at all for any of these categories. I feel like the owner is doing everything that he can to try and make the group decent, but with $20 a month fee membership, there's not really much resources that you can work with. Botting in general is going to be pretty expensive, especially when you're starting out. You have all of these initial fees and stuff like that. In my opinion, you're much better off not cheaping out and instead going for one of the more expensive groups so that you can start profiting faster, so that you can learn faster. On top of that, more premium groups come with a lot more features, as you can see when I was comparing each of these different categories against one another. So yeah, that's why I'm giving them a 5 out of 10. For Polar Chefs, this group was almost perfect. I give them a 9.8 out of 10. Two reasons. Number one, they're missing brick flips, which I feel like is quite important. And number two, they do have a few names in their group buy list, which I feel like is a must, but they do not have at the moment. Once they fix those two things, this group would be a 10 out of 10. But as of right now, it's in a really good spot. They blew me away as far as expectations in every single category. Over the years, I've been part of a ton of cook groups, and I would definitely put them in my top 5. When it comes to Notified, with an average rating of 9.33, they did amazing in every single category. Except, in my time being in the group, chat support was a little bit slow, especially in comparison to Strike Access and Polar Chefs. And the chat support feels a bit distant. When it comes to dealing with newcomers, people who are brand new to botting, staff members should definitely take the extra mile to make sure that these new members are getting all of the information and all of the relevant context. For instance, in the ticket that I opened with them, I stated explicitly that I was a new member and I was asking for proxy recommendations. Their responses, they were technically correct, but I would have personally handled the ticket a little bit different, knowing that this is a new person. I would have advised them to go to seminars. I would have advised them to attend the one-on-one sessions. I would have asked if they've seen the Get Started video, just to make sure that they know what they're getting into, to make sure that there's no information that's missing. Instead, I feel like the staff members here, they give me the bare minimum answers. And that's not something that I experienced in either Strike Access or Polar Chefs. But that being said, that criticism is mainly only for their chat support. Their one-on-one support is really good. Their seminars are also really good. But yeah, personal overall rating, 9.5. I think that's a fair number. For Strike Access, they had an average rating of 8.12, but my personal rating will be an 8. It's a very good group, but it's missing some guides. There's no video guides as far as I was able to see. The channels are a little bit all over the place, and for each category, I was like, okay, this is good, this is good, this is good, but there wasn't really anything that just absolutely blew me away. Nothing was exactly unbelievably exceptional, except for when I looked into their ACO recap channels, and their results for the ACOs were extremely impressive. I almost find them to be impossibly impressive. They're just that good at botting. So yeah, there you have it. My goodness, this is the longest video I've ever done. In the comment section, let me know which cook group you want me to review next. Maybe I will have a part 2 for this if there's enough of a demand. Thank you to WAP for sponsoring this video, and with that, I'm out.